Well, guys, the day is finally upon us. The mostly anticipated trailer for Avengers Doomsday has finally dropped. This is the fifth installment of the Avengers movie series, and it's gonna be the last movie of Phase 6. Now, I have to be honest, the four teasers that we saw the past months honestly didn't satisfy me one bit because it was all about characters we already knew, but see them in just what it was like short clips didn't really give any context on the movie. So the fact is that we already knew them. It was nothing surprising. We knew that they were gonna return in Avengers Doomsday, and we never actually got a pretty good look at Doom until this very trailer. So when the actual trailer dropped, I watched it on repeat to take it in as much as possible, and of course I had to give my thoughts on it. Now, before I start, I just wanted to clarify that this is no new footage. This is basically an improved version of the trailer that was showed at CinemaCon a while ago that Marvel pretty much hid from us until now. So whoever was there pretty much knew the content of the trailer already. Now, as I'm not particularly versed into the comic book lore, I'm not gonna go frame by frame to say what every single bit means, but or what it refers as regard to the comics. But I'm just gonna give my general thoughts about it. Now, let's go in order. One of the things that's been discussed the most about this trailer is RDJ's accent as Doom. I personally loved it. It's not perfect, but I think I like the idea of Doom sounding like he's actually from Eastern Europe, which is where Latveria is. And I've also heard some people say that he sounds like Borat, which is hilarious. But seriously, I think it's quite fitting, and he also adds an element of mystique and mystery to the character. Now, his narration is bone-chilling, and I love how, in a way, it doesn't sound evil, but rather like a man who has to make unbelievable sacrifices for the greater good. That makes sense. It's in line with the leaks that we've had so far, because we know that for what's probably going to be half of the movie, we're all going to believe that Doom is actually the good guy and is actually helping them save the universe. Although, the fact that his name is Doctor Doom is already a giant red flag, but, what do I know? Now, there's the other thing that worries me is that there's been a parade of characters in this movie, and it feels like a giant cameo fest. So that worries me because I don't know, there's a lot of characters that we know they're gonna be there, some other characters that we can only speculate they're gonna be there, and I don't know, the things that worries me is how they're gonna handle all of these characters all at once. But one more note about Doom, I'm actually really happy about the look. It's classic Doctor Doom, he's as comic book accurate as it gets. With the green hood and the mask, the whole medieval knight vibe is, I would say, it's pretty on point. So at least the look, the worries about the look are out of the way. Now, we know that these characters are gonna fight in the beginning when all these universes are gonna interact with each other. We saw Shang-Chi fighting with Gambit, which is really cool because they have similar powers. We saw Mystique fighting with Yelena and taking Yelena's shape, which was really cool and a very solid choice because they're both very skilled fighters. Also talking about the X-Men in general, they look fantastic, from Cyclops, Mystique, Gambit, Professor X and Magneto. They look so old, but it's so great to see them in an Avengers movie, and I just hope they don't end up badly, because I don't want to see Professor X dying again for the 100th times. And I don't know, Magneto is just Ian McKellen's version of Magneto is such a classic villain that I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how he interacts with Doom and with the other Avengers members. The fact is that I cannot fake any interest towards most of the characters introduced in Phase 4 and 5. And Phase 6 as well, to be fair, it didn't start too good with Fantastic Four, which was, I'd say, quite a mediocre movie, like very underwhelming. And that's not encouraging considering that Doctor Doom was actually introduced in that movie. Now the problem is that, yeah, I don't care about the Thunderbolts, but I would say like Sentry and the Void are a very interesting villain, like hero slash villain. I want to see how it plays out in this movie. But yeah, I don't care about Shang-Chi, I don't care about the new Black Panther, the new Captain America, and so on. I'm just worried that they're gonna eat a lot of screen time from characters that are way more important to the plot. In a way, it also feels like it's petty casting, like they're just there because they have to address the fact that they exist in this universe. And after the disastrous movies of Phase 4 and 5, they cannot just ignore them because otherwise it would be like a retcon or a reboot, or a soft reboot rather. They had to address them in Avengers Doomsday, which is kind of annoying because those characters nearly ruined the entire universe. Now, also, like, it's important to understand how this universe evolved after Endgame. And talking about Endgame, I'm curious to see the additional footage that they're gonna add to the re-release before Doomsday. I hope that it adds valuable context to Doomsday and it's not just like a cheap retcon to pretend that Doomsday was always part of the plan. We have like a generic idea of the plot, as Doomsday is basically like a repurposed version of the Kang Dynasty. Before Jonathan Major was arrested, they scrapped the project also after Ant-Man Quantumania failed, which is the movie where Kang was introduced, and then the Loki series. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, the plot is gonna be bad. So I just hope that they at least address the fact that Kang was supposed to be the big bad in this movie, and they don't just treat him like just an insignificant character that got killed by an army of giant ants, or just ignore him completely, because it's also a big part of the TVA, which was introduced in Loki, and it's going to play a big part in this movie. So in a way, like, there's a lot of things that are interconnected, but also they're loose. So they need to really like put the pieces of the puzzle well together for this movie to hold. But now let's go back to the trailer. The narration at some point switches from Doom to Thor, and I'm glad to be able to say that Thor is finally back to his more serious comic book accurate version. It sounds more like a Norwegian god, and Chris Hemsworth is doing an amazing job to bring back the aura of the character, which was completely lost in the last two movies, especially in Love and Thunder. Now, one thing that I didn't like is the fact that they describe Doom as the biggest threat they faced so far, and that kind of like undermines the role of Thanos. We already saw that in the Loki series, where they basically treat the Infinity Stones as paperweight, which was kind of annoying because it was like the biggest thing about the first three phases. But yeah, I don't know. They kind of need to feel like Doom is that menacing, that powerful, and he is. The fact is that we have no idea because he's never even been mentioned in this universe yet. So we just briefly saw him at the end of Fantastic Four, but as far as we know, like, this character is completely unknown in the universe. Now, speaking of Loki, he also appears as TVA agent in the trailer, and probably one of the major players in this movie, because he's literally holding the reins of the multiverse by himself. So I hope they use him well, not the way they treat him in the series, which I thought it was very poor, and also he gets an emotional reunion with Thor. We also knew about the fight between Thor and Doom, which is depicted at the end of the trailer, and it's so freaking cool. With Doom stopping Stormbreaker with just 2 fingers, which is cold. The concept is undeniably cool. The problem I have with that is that the CGI looks very poor. It looks just video game-ish, kind of like CGI. But I'm not too worried about that because the movie's not finished yet. They're still in the editing phase, actually still in the shooting phase, I think. So this scene is probably gonna look way more polished, way more realistic in either the next trailers or in the movie when it comes out on the 18th of December. Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. Like, obviously, Marvel CGI has not been the best the past years, but I know they're really gonna, you know, they're really gonna pay super duper attention to the CGI in this movie because it's an Avengers movie, so they cannot mess it up. In the end, also there is the reunion between Thor and Captain America. Well, Steve Rogers actually, because he's not Captain America in this movie, he's just a black shirt guy. Basically, I just say it looks weird seeing him in civilian clothes because you can tell he really belongs in a Captain American suit, but at the same time, I don't want to be one of those fans that, it's constantly lives in the past and, complains about the good old days being gone. We're in a different phase of the MCU, so we just need to hope for Marvel to do their best with the mess they've created themselves. Now, at first, Thor cannot believe it's him, but then Steve picks up Mjolnir and clears any doubts. Again, cool scene, but in a way, it almost undermines the ending of Endgame, because that's where Steve decides that he wants to stay in the past and live with Peggy Carter and have his happy ending. So I feel like they're just gonna bring him back and they just open another can of worms. In a way, it makes sense logically that he's probably the main cause of the incursion because it was not supposed to be living in that timeline. But at the same time, his send-off was very emotional, very satisfying. So I hope they don't ruin that. Just like I hope they don't ruin RDJ, like Tony Stark's sacrifice at the end of Endgame by bringing him back as the bad guy. Now, I would say that it's clear there's a lot of nostalgia bait in this trailer, which is not surprising. It's working to some degree on me as well. But by the way, I think it will be. So some people think it will actually be Captain Hydra, but Steve Rogers. I don't know about that, but you never know. The trailer ends with the Doomsday Clock, and thank God they spared us the usual Marvel sketch where they give their best attempt at quippy humor, because it would have ruined the whole vibe of the trailer. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Now, some considerations. I'm extremely excited for this movie, and I'll watch it on release date probably more than once, but the circumstances under this movie came about kind of worry me. Now, you all know what happened since Endgame, with the quality of the movies and the lack of clear vision, overarching plot, etc. So I'm not gonna talk about this in this video. These are, some of the reasons why the first three phases were so successful, because the vision was homogeneous. And also they took their time really building up the characters, the plot, etc. So it all made sense in the end that we were all emotionally attached to these characters. Now, this movie, as exciting as it is, because obviously we're finally gonna have Doom in the MCU, it lacks build-up. So there's no emotional attachment to the character. We don't fear him yet because we don't know how powerful he is. But also they're supposed to combine over 60 characters in this movie, and most of them, they never interacted with each other. So in less than 3 hours, we have to believe that they're gonna be able to meet, fight, resolve their fight, and unite against Doom. It's just too much in one movie. Also, we still don't have confirmation about certain characters like Spider-Man, Wolverine, Hulk, if any version of them is gonna be in this movie. So the plot could be even more stuffed with characters. I think some storyline would be inevitably rushed, and we kind of know the ending, which in a way is similar to Infinity War, where Doom is gonna win, is gonna clear basically all the different timelines and create just one universe, which is a battle world where he's gonna rule as God Emperor Doom, most likely. But the fact is that in a way, it feels like this movie is a soft reboot before the soft reboot of Secret Wars. So I don't know, like it feels in a way like it's already out of this universe, and I don't know. I think they need to be very careful about the way they send off these characters. Because obviously we're talking about characters that are, I don't know, they've played these superheroes over like 20 years, so they clearly need to be sent off again after Secret Wars. And if they mess up the way they, if they mess up their finale, it's gonna leave a bitter taste in everyone's mouth, because they're like, oh, they should have just left things as they were after Endgame. So that's another thing that really worries me a lot. Yeah, the fact is that, with that being said, I don't mean to say that the movie is gonna be bad. I don't think so at all. I just think that is very, like, I just want to say that the skepticism about it is very justified. A lot of people apparently feel absolutely nothing for this. They're already in the apathy phase, which I don't blame them. But I don't know. I feel like an Avengers movie is still an Avengers movie, and it's kind of an event. And I don't know, like, I'm so excited to see it, to see how this universe moves forward. If it's possible to save the MCU, or we just need to call it a day and, start the review with something different. But in the end, what do I think of the trailer? Right, it got me pumped up. I can't wait for the movie to come out in just about 4 months. Despite all the key jangling, there's still hope. I think that this is gonna be more than a cash grab, and also like a desperate attempt from Marvel to save this universe. Also, I trust the Russo Brothers. Like, so far, they've released bangers after bangers, at least in the MCU. Like, they've done the last, Captain America with Winter Soldiers, which some say it's the best MCU movie ever. They've done Civil War and Infinity War and Endgame. So honestly, it's not like it's two directors at their first movie. They're experienced. They know what they're doing with this universe. So I completely trust them to create a great story. I think it's just a matter of time now. Like, hopefully we get another trailer, because soon it's gonna be San Diego Comic-Con. So I actually thought that we were not gonna get this trailer until San Diego Comic-Con, but since we got the trailer that was released at CinemaCon, maybe we're gonna get something else at Comic-Con. Who knows? But we'll see. Hopefully we get a deeper look at Doom, because although we generally know, like, even the occasional public, like, they know who Dr. Doom is, like, at least they have a generic idea of this character. But the fact is that we don't know how he's going to be depicted in the MCU, because we absolutely know nothing about him. And then, just wanted to talk about the stakes. So that's, to me, is very important, and it really emerges from this trailer. So the stakes are as high as it gets, because with every incursion, we basically have universes colliding, and that's a world-ending event. So those are the unthinkable decisions that Doom is talking about, where you have to choose between saving one universe or lose them all. So that's why I think if they build the story in the right way, they can really make Doom like one of the greatest villain ever depicted on screen, because it gives the magnitude of the character, and also it's more like an anti-hero in a way, at least in the first half of the movie, where he knows that he has to do horrible things, but those horrible things are done because he cares about the greater good. So I really like this kind of like conflicting characters, and the fact that he's not just the kind of like mustache twirling classic villain, which is also part of Doom characters, but here is actually very deep, very thoughtful, and in a way I love villains when you can kind of like agree with them and like, okay, what you're doing is horrible, but it makes sense, because otherwise even more horrible things are going to happen. So I hope that we really get like a proper insight on these decisions, and it's not just being used as an excuse for all these characters to interact and fight with each other. But I really want to see what are the consequences of these horrific actions. Now, that's pretty much what my thoughts on the trailer. hopefully we get more material, and I'll comment on that as soon as it's out. So let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you all in the next one.